Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I have as my guest an interesting guest with kind of an odd topic, and I enjoyed reading about it. His name is Douglas Smythe, and he's going to talk about traditional shaving, a lost art. Douglas was first introduced to traditional shaving as a child, watching his dad, which I was too. That's how my dad shaved. And he was 94 and just passed away. He still shaved that way. After college, he moved. Douglas moved to Central America, where he lived in a hammock at the edge of the rainforest. And we have that in common as well. We'll talk about that. Well, there, he developed some topical applicants to help keep bugs away, and eventually his passion for male grooming and traditional shaving became his focal point, and he started a business called Phoenix Shaving that was featured in Forbes magazine, long way up from the hammock at the side of the rainforest, Douglas. Douglas also hosts his own radio show called The Big Shave and a YouTube show called I'd Lather Be Shaving. That's a pretty good pun. So thank you so much for being our guest today, Douglas.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me, Ellen.
Let's go back in time and just talk a little bit about your own history as a child. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Okay. And you said that you started being interested in just watching your dad.
Yes.
And he was shaving like my dad did. I think you're quite a bit younger than me, so I didn't know your dad's age people still shaved like that. And did he use my dad used a soap thing, a brush. The soap was in a little thing, and then a brush, and then like a straight razor.
Yep, that's it. The straight razor or a double-edged razor is what they typically use. Now, my dad was born in the 1930s. They had me a little bit later in life. I was surprised, I guess, on their part. But on the weekends, he would be home and pull out the traditional razor, which would be the double-edged razor, shaving brush, shaving mug with soap inside that he inherited from his father. So it was kind of a family heirloom type thing. And he would set me up next to him on a little stool and give me a double-edged razor too without the blade inside. And he would soap me up and we'd both go at it, shaving together.
And so that was something that you experienced and remembered. But then as you got older, that wasn't the style that I imagine you used as a young man.
No, though I did get the razor from my dad eventually. I kind of fell out with it only because, the blades weren't available anymore until the inception of the internet and whatnot. We could not find those blades anymore. So you had to use what they had on offer, which were the multi-blade cartridge razors. If you ask me a bill of goods they sold us, and it was intentional that they weren't selling blades at that time just to keep us using those cartridge razors and those multi-blade razors.
Because there's a lot more stuff thrown out then. So
a lot more stuff thrown out. And the thing is, they were never really invented for a better shave. The more blades you use, the worse the shave is going to be. In fact, I'd say a lot of guys, the reason why you see so many beards these days is because most men hate shaving. Even though they have all these different shave clubs now they can join, they're still using inferior products and inadvertently hurting their faces. So most men hate shaving. Because these cartridges, these multi-blade razors, the reason why they were invented in the first place, again, wasn't for a better shave. It's because Gillette was running out of their patents in the 1970s. 1970, 71, Gillette and Wilkins & Sword, they needed something else. They needed a new patent design because other businesses were infringing upon their design, the double-edged blade. And that's when they came up with a multi-blade cartridge. So it was never, ever about a better shave. It was just they needed something, a new idea. And they went from a multi-million-dollar company to a multi-billion-dollar company overnight because of that.
Wow. You know why?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting because everything is so political.
Well, I call it the cartridge razor conspiracy because they were even actually dulling word is they were dulling down their double-edged blades too to move people over to the cartridge razors. They really wanted to get you over there. And, the more blades you drag across your face, the more skin problems you're going to have. All you need is one blade. Every time you drag one blade across your face, you're taking off a layer of skin. So as soon as you start stacking them up, you're asking for ingrown hairs, razor burn, razor bumps. These are problems that didn't exist before 1971. No one was talking about razor burn or ingrown hairs. Now they actually cause the problem, and they offer the solution with their products to treat these razor bumps. So, yeah, that's the story.
That is really fascinating, even, from a political perspective, because certainly what's all the rage, even on those plastic throwaways, is the triple blades.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to get political with it, women weren't shaving. Gillette is the company that got women to start shaving. They wanted to sell products to women as well. And so they started the campaign. Let me think for a second. It was Freud's nephew there who wrote the book Propaganda. But he was a brilliant marketer, and he was the one who sold the idea to women that shaving is what they needed to do in order to sell more products for Gillette.
That's interesting too.
Yeah.
Now, in your, processing about this and about men's grooming, what led you to live? How did you get to that part of your life where you moved to Central America and you lived in a hammock, which of course is called a hamaca, right?
Hamaca.
If you're in Central America, because I lived there too. So what got you to that part of your life?
Well, I was a professional musician in a band, in different bands and studio musician work as well for years, for most of my young life. And I got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore, and I needed to get away. And I did. I got away for a 2-week vacation with a buddy of mine who'd been to Central America before. And I fell in love with the place, so much so that we extended our trip another 2 weeks. And I was like, you know what? I'm coming back here. I'm going to move here. And he was like, no, you're crazy. And he was a guitarist in my band at the time. He was like, no. And I was like, yeah, I am. And he's like, well, I'll do it too. He ended up bailing on me. But a year later, I packed up everything I owned and put it in storage and moved on down to Central America without knowing the language or anyone down there.
Oh, so you didn't meet
Paul Simon song, I think, or Jimmy Buffett song.
Well, that's it was a Spanish-speaking area, I imagine.
Oh yeah, that's primarily what was spoken was just Spanish. Well, and German, because the German, they travel a lot too.
I lived in a town that was called Santa Cruz, but Santa Cruz, Mexico, which is right across from Puerto Vallarta, which is now a very hot tourist area.
I was just there, actually, a couple years ago.
It's a great place to go. But when I lived there, it was completely undeveloped. It was strictly a fishing village. Yes. A bus came through, and I'll say now and then. I don't know how those people do it. You just sit at the bus stop and wait a few days. I don't know.
Yes.
When does it come? Oh, yeah, va venir. Yeah, it's going to come. Like whenever.
Mañana. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe mañana or maybe in 3 minutes, and then you miss it for a week. It's really a whole different lifestyle. So I lived there because I was interested in studying with the curanderas, who are the local herbalists, which I did for many years. So I lived in a little house. It was a grass shack, and that was called a palapa. And then in the palapa was a hamaca, which is that hammock, which was strung across. That's because there's so many bugs and things on the ground. And the ground was just a dirt floor.
Yes. And the village I lived in was a fishing village too, and the infrastructure just wasn't there. The police came through town maybe once a month. Maybe there was no local police, so any problems you had there, you had to solve yourself. It was a Wild West, so I can relate to that. And really not much going on.
So what did you do? Did you play music there, or?
Well, I was teaching orchestral music to children, but that was probably 2 years into my time there. Originally, I was just living off my funds in a hammock on the beach, in the rainforest, on the beach, the edge of the rainforest, just surfing and taking it all in.
So how interesting. Now, you have something in your writing about the fact that even while you were there, you developed something that would be called, let's say, a topical applicant for bugs.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Well, that was out of necessity. As you just described about Puerto Vallarta, there's not much there. When you were trying to buy something, like the things we take for granted in this society that we live in the West, were like there. Velcro, for example, if you wanted Velcro, you have to wait a couple of weeks for the other side of the Velcro to come in. Or it's just amazing the things they have and the things they don't have. And one of the things they didn't have was anything to treat bug bites with after the fact, because between 5 and 6 p.m. every evening, the sand fleas would come out. And they weren't out for long, but when they were out, they were looking for me. And as you know, in the rainforest, stuff wants to grow on you too. So it's really easy to catch infections or anything like that. So this was a real problem. So I needed to create something. I was looking for something like an after bite type solution, something that was, sterilized or antiseptic, and it would also, treat the itching. And there was nothing. So I took matters in my own hands and bought whatever chemicals at the local pharmacia that I could find, or essential oils, and combined them into what I was calling Ichnomas, which actually worked really, really well.
Wow, that's a great name.
Yeah.
Illegal, though. Illegal. I don't know if you're familiar with regulatory practices here in the U.S. That name would actually be illegal, right? But it's a great name. Yeah.
Ichnomas. I couldn't make any claims around Ichnomas. Right. I could probably still use the name, but I don't know if I could make any claims. So down there, it caught on. Locals, tourists alike, they all loved it. Everyone was knocking on my tent flaps, so to speak. And I, as I was swinging in the hammock, I was saying, if I ever make it back to the States, I'm going to sell this stuff. I'm going to, make it and ship it down here. And, it was just just a pipe dream, if that. But 4 years later, when I got back to the States, I got back to a whole different world. It was an Etsy world. I'd never heard of such a thing before. And it really leveled the playing field when it came to making your own products. There was like a cottage industry that sprung up, it seemed. And I created Ichnomas. And so that's what I was doing. I was shipping it down there. And alongside of it, I created another product called Stinknomas, which was an emergency insect repellent / deodorant. So as you wore it, it would the essential oils in it would lift into the air, the volatiles, and keep bugs away. And that actually sold better than the Ichnomas, to tell you the truth, and probably because it was working. So Stinknomas and Ichnomas, and I was selling it off the shelves. The only problem was shipping. And so that's when I decided to turn my sights away from Central America back to the United States and say, hey, I should do something up here. And
can you share with us some of the essential oils that you included in your formulas?
Tea tree oil. I also do distillation here in my lab, but I was doing tea tree oil down there, calendula, plantain, peels. I was distilling them, lavender, and peppermint.
See, that is excellent. And that's why you belong right here as our guest on Herbally Yours. I know, I was stretching to how is that, but here we go. This is why. And we're so happy to have you as our guest today. I want to remind you, listeners, you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse. And my guest today is Douglas Smythe. And you can find him at idlatherbeshaving.com. That's a great site, idlatherbeshaving.com, or Phoenix, just like spelt like Arizona, shaving.com. And he just shared with us why he belongs on Herbally Yours. And that's because one of the things he did is actually use essential oils that have a lot of terpenes, which are the aromatic components, and they are healing, such as tea tree oil, calendula, plantain leaves, lavender, and peppermint. So now
and catnip oil.
Catnip oil.
Which is 10 times stronger than DEET when it comes to keeping mosquitoes away.
That's right. It's very strong for that. So you combined all these also with other things, maybe alcohol and, whatever you put in your product. And it worked really well. It sounds great. And you were in a place where the FDA wasn't sniffing around about your GMP practices. So that made it, really wonderful to help people.
However, I still sell it now. I sell the deodorant still. I call it Outdoorsman's Friend now. And it does really well. I sell it this time of year every year. And it's still, highly effective. Hunters love it as well. I mean, any outdoors type really are enjoying this product.
And it still has essential oils in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's excellent. And what kind of things would you be distilling? You said you're actually doing your own distilling.
Oh, God. I use, because I try to do his own essential oils where I can, but for the most part, I'm in it for the hydrosols because I create my own aftershaves and colognes.
I love hydrosols.
Yeah. Me too. They're great for everything. A bed freshener or toner for the face, so on and so forth. But I use them rather than water, or just plain water in an aftershave or a cologne, as you typically would or traditionally would. Just add a little more. I call them ghost notes when it comes to the scent. So it's in between, like the major scent that's hitting you in the face. In between there, you won't necessarily notice it, but you would notice it if it wasn't there. So it's like these undertones it adds. And it's also great for its toning qualities and other medicinal qualities that these plants offer. And all different types of plants, from lavender to catnip, any plant that I would use or wood. I also use different types of wood, sandalwood, if you will.
What else?
As well.
What else besides sandalwood? Because sandalwood is a very interesting scent of wood.
Sandalwood, oud, witch hazel, obviously.
Witch hazel is wonderful for skin. Why would you use witch hazel?
Well, for the toning qualities and the healing qualities and the antiseptic qualities of witch hazel. Witch hazel has hundreds of different uses, as I'm sure you know. Introduced us, and it's one of the only scientifically studied plants in the United States. And we've been using it for hundreds of years, thanks to the Native Americans sharing it with us. But I mean, so many different uses for that.
It's an interesting tree too, because if you grow it, which I don't think it likes to grow in Arizona, but it does grow on Long Island, and it's the earliest thing in the winter. It actually flowers, which is very interesting when everything else is dead. And it's highly astringent. And also, like you said, it's widely available commercially. It's like in every drugstore. So it's actually an herbal remedy that has actually survived into modern times, which is still used for skincare. Although I bet if you're making your own, it's a whole other kind of product than the watery stuff you would find in the drugstore.
Oh, yeah. And the stuff in the drugstore also has alcohol in it, too, which I find bizarre considering that alcohol is naturally occurring in witch hazel. But I mean, I also do that. I do creosote, which is growing everywhere around here.
Oh, creosote, that's for sure.
Yeah, creosote.
My children and me before them, they were born on an off-the-grid farm in Bisbee, Arizona.
Oh.
Are you familiar with Bisbee?
Oh, I know Bisbee.
Yeah, so I lived there for a lot of years. My children were born there, and I had an off-the-grid farm there where we raised all our own food and had all kinds of animals and fruit trees and everything else on the area that was part of the mining company. And they let people live in these little miner shacks right inside the mine.
On top of each other.
And it was excellent. I mean, that was one of my favorite places I ever lived. So the creosote grows all around in that area. And when it rains, it's the most amazing scent on those leaves.
Exactly. And that's what I do.
What are you doing with it now? What are you doing with the creosote now?
I make an aftershave out of it. It's for people that live in the Southwest. I do like after the rain type scents, you know. So that was one of them for people out here that would only get it. And then sage. I also do sage, white sage, and I even do coffee, hydrosol, just a bunch of different hydrosols. And again, it's only one of the many ingredients in our aftershave colognes. So it's just a little something different we do that goes a long way, and people seem to enjoy them.
Well, explain to people, because some of our listeners might not know, that a hydrosol is an herbal preparation, but it's different, let's say, than a tincture or an extract or a tisane. So what is a hydrosol?
It's a byproduct of steam distillation that we typically do. I say byproduct because most people are doing steam distillation to get the essential oil out of a leaf or a seed or whatever it gives off it as its own oil. And the hydrosol would be the water, the steam turned back to water after the fact. And the essential oil typically floats on top of that. And you would scoop that out, the essential oil, set it aside, and you're left with this scented flower water, which is the essence of the plant, essence being the scent. And it's wonderful stuff, and you can't toss it. I can't imagine people throwing this stuff away, but a lot of people do. They're only in it for the essential oil.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's water-based.
Yes,
and it's really what a totally interesting herbal show you're doing. You should really put that up there for all the others.
It is up there.
It didn't talk about all these herbs. It was just a little sneaky.
Oh, yeah. That's how I get you. I'm a Trojan horse guest. Chameleon guest.
I had a feeling, because what tipped me off about it really was the living in the jungle, That was like, he must know about a little bit about herbs, but here you are, a true herbalist in the very, very real sense, and you're incorporating that also in a business sense into a very specialized category of, you say men's, but do women use any of these products as well, or is it really male focused?
No, we have unisex scents as well. We offer almost 70 different scents now, and a lot of them can be for him or her, though it's mostly directed at men. That's our demographic. But women just really aren't moving towards returning to traditional shaving at this point in time. We had a women's line probably about 5 years ago, and it really just sat on the shelf. So we're trying to get women involved, and I think it just really comes to education. I don't know. The thing is, traditional shaving to men right now that get into it, it becomes almost like a hobby. It turns the everyday chore into something interesting.
Let's talk about that term. What does that mean, traditional shaving?
Traditional shaving means not using cartridge razors, not using any of the plastic razors, the one-size-fits-all razors. That's a big problem, the one-size-fits-all mentality when it comes to it. And using a shave brush and a shave soap, creating a hot lather, pre-treating your face with that the exfoliating brush, building that lather up, the warm, hot lather, and then using either a straight razor or a double-edged safety razor with one blade inside of it, not the multi-blades. And that's what I'm talking about. And these are the razors themselves are made out of metal. As I mentioned at the top, they're heirloom pieces. They're going to last forever. They're built to last. In fact, you can get a great shave today with a vintage razor that was made 75 years ago that you bought on eBay, if that tells you anything. So there's no filler for the land or for the dump when it comes to cartridge, or when you're using a cartridge razor or goo in a can, the spray lather in a can. That's garbage. It's just loaded with a lot of stuff that shouldn't be on your face, especially propellants that are only in it to get it out of the can. That shouldn't be on your face as well. So it's a big difference from what we're used to, and we're really just not taught the right way to do it anymore. So that's what we're trying to do, is re-educate people and give men permission to start talking about these things.
So are they making new ones of these razors?
I design safety razors as well. So I call myself a wet shaving hardware / software developer, because we do it all. We do the hardware, which is the safety razors, the brushes, and we also do the software, like the soaps and the aftershaves and the balms, EDP, so on and so forth. So we do it all. And yeah, it's coming back slowly but surely with me. I've been on the scene for about 12 years now and slowly growing it. I'd Lather Be Shaving is my morning show, morning shave show, where it's kind of like Wayne's World meets American Pickers meets Antique Roadshow, or Car Talk even. It's a lot like Car Talk, where even if you're not interested in the subject of cars, you're still going to listen to it because it's funny and it's kind of interesting, and there's history involved. So I try to reach people that way. And also, you mentioned Big Shave, but you said it was a show. The Big Shave is actually a conference I have every year. We call it the Big Shave West. And last year would have been our 6th year doing it. However, we had to cancel it. It was an 8th.
You like everyone else, yeah.
Exactly. But we have people from all over the world that come and speak. We platforms on different shaving related or traditional grooming related topics for men. We have vendors and artisans from all over the world that show up too. So it's a real big, long, week-long event that is growing every year. So we're just really trying to create an awareness around this, that there is a better way. There's a way to finally fine-tune the shave to your own unique skin type and face, and you can't do that with a cartridge razor or goo in a can. With a safety razor, you can. There's hundreds of different blades to choose from, and blades prices range from, $9 to $15 for 100 double-edged blades, stainless steel blades. So right there, rather than the cartridge razor, what is it, $25 for 4 of them? And then there's those clubs you can join. But again, you're saving money. Big deal. You're using an inferior product that's actually hurting you in the long run. So you find a blade that works for you. You put it in the safety razor that works for you. And we recommend you try all the different razors out there if you can, as many as you can get your hands on. Find what works for you there. Then find a soap and a scent that works for you. And find a brush that works for you. So you can really customize all the different elements there and find what fits you. And you can't do that with cartridge razor shaving.
And like you said, it's sort of it's an old thing that's becoming new again, right?
Yeah,
and so
yes.
it has, would you say something that would be more like a cult following at this point?
Well, yeah, I'd say it is. It's growing, though. You're starting to see the stuff show up in stores again. You see some commercials here and there for safety razors. So it's right there on the edge of pop culture. But I feel like you will see a bigger drive in the next few years towards that. Even though I've been saying that for the last 10 years, but I really think it's right around the corner because once you experience it, you'll never go back to shaving the other way. You're going to get a better shape. Your skin's going to be healthier. So right there, and it's smoother. So less damage involved.
I think I really also like that your topic in general is male-centric because I really feel that men don't get enough attention. One thing I lecture a lot about is, let's say, even andropause. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but just that men don't get, I think, enough attention. So many of these things in the natural market, in the grooming market, are very female-centric.
Exactly.
And I think that that's not actually fair.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're trying to create an awareness. We're trying to give them permission to do this. We're trying to create a language for them to use, something familiar. And this, to add to that, we inject a little bit of nostalgia. They can remember their dad or their grandfather maybe having that mug on the bathroom sink with the brush in it. Like it was a mysterious thing that no one ever really talked about. And that was nothing. No one ever really talks about shaving. So yeah, it's growing slowly but surely.
What about barbers? Are barbers bringing this? Because they're the ones that still you see in movies with this single blade slashing it on that thing, piece of leather or whatever they do.
Barbers, they're coming back into style too. Barbers, I think, are like the cool thing to be, like the tattoo artist was in the 90s. So There's that. However, they don't really use straight razors so much anymore due to legal reasons. So they use what we call a shavette, which has a replaceable blade. So they're not using the traditional straight razor, which is just the single blade.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Douglas, because we're almost out of time. But what's the best place for people to look for more information on this great topic?
PhoenixShaving.com. I have a blog attached to my site. And our show, I'dLatherBeShaving.com. And, if you can find me any time of day at PhoenixShaving.com. I have a chat box there to them, always manning, saying I can talk about this all day long. It's my passion.
Obviously, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on our show as an herbalist, as well as, your business with traditional shaving, a lost art, and telling us so much about the history and then these great formulas with hydrosols. You were a wonderful guest, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for having me.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in once again to Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us again next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.